This next technique requires you to copy or clone eyelashes from one location and place them in another. This is definitely a more tedious process than the last technique that I showed you, but ultimately you can get better, more realistic results. So the first thing that I want you to do is create a new layer. After creating a new layer, you probably want to zoom in to an eye, at least 200%, so you can really see what you're doing. Now we're going to come over and choose the Clone Stamp tool. And if you haven't used the Clone Stamp tool before, it essentially allows you to select pixels from one portion of the image and paint them in another location of the image. Now the real key to this technique is sampling an eyelash that has a lighter skin tone behind it and placing it in a location where the skin tone is maybe a little bit darker. So in order for us to do this, I want you to select the brush size. You can come up here and do that. You can also use the bracket keys on your keyboard. The other key is that you need to be sampling all layers. This will allow us to sample the background layer while painting on layer 1. You also want a line checked, and it should be by default. Then you need to position your cursor over the eyelash that you want to clone. Hold down the Option key on the Mac, Alt on Windows, and click. That's establishing your sample point. Then move your cursor into the location where you want to paint the new eyelash, and click and drag to paint, or if you're using a tablet, you can use the pen on the tablet. Now, as you paint this, you want to follow the crosshair, because the crosshair is ultimately what you're copying into the new location. Now, as you do this, you can see that we did in fact take some of those lighter skin tones with us. Now, you can imagine what a pain it would be to come in and mask this out. So fortunately, there's an easier way, and that way is to come over to the blending mode menu and choose something like darken or multiply. And when you do that, you'll notice it looks really good. Now you can use the free transform tool, Command T on the Mac, Control T on Windows, if you want to rotate that eyelash. You can even scale it to some degree, but in this case I don't think it's necessary. And you can also reposition it using the arrow keys on the keyboard. Now one thing that you may want to do, if I go ahead and press Escape so that transformation is not applied, is when you select the free transform tool, again Command T or Control T, you can move this center point. If you pick up this center point and place it down here towards the bottom, I'll go ahead and undo that. I'll zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see. If you grab this center point, and again, in order for you to grab the center point, you need to hold down the Option key on the Mac, Alt on Windows. You can drag this down here towards the bottom. That way, when you rotate the eyelash, the pivot point is the bottom section. You can press Enter or Return to apply that. Now, as we zoom out, you can see that that's a pretty natural looking eyelash. And you can turn off layer 1 to see what it looked like before, and you can turn it back on to see what it looks like now that we've added that eyelash. That's just one eyelash. So depending upon how far you want to take this, you can imagine how much time you'll have to spend cloning and painting eyelashes. This, of course, is the best way to go. Like I said, it's going to give you the most realistic results, especially when you're dealing with an image that has such a tight crop where you're really just looking at the head of the model. When you're further away, remember you can get away with those brushes that we looked at in the previous video, but this technique will give you the best results.